Buyer with the Gorgeous Geeks, and we are here in Detroit with OmniCorpDetroit, and we are in a hackerspace. Now, normally when people think about hackerspaces, they're thinking about breaking into the banks and stealing money and worms and something from 24. No, that's not what we're here talking about. We're the hackerspace here. Well, I'm here with Jeff Sturgis, and he is going to tell us a little bit more about what a hackerspace is when we talk about a hackerspace.
Sure. So a hackerspace is pretty much a space that we share, the members share, and what you do is you pay monthly dues, and with those monthly dues you have access to a nice space that we have here, but you also have access to the tools that everybody brings in or the tools that we kind of collaboratively buy. So it's a great thing because not only do you have access to the space and those tools, but you also have access to some really talented, awesome, highly energetic people, which really makes you as a person smarter and more productive because you're always sharing knowledge between each other, but also there's just this great energy of people around doing projects. So it really is kind of a feel-good space, but also in a way it pushes you to do even more and doing projects.
Okay, so everyone here is inventing things? Is that what's going on, or?
In a way, like hacking can be inventing, or hacking can be taking something that already exists and turning it into something that you'd like it to do. So one example, like hacking a Roomba, which is like the little vacuum cleaner robot. Some people take them and they will turn them into something different. Like for instance, over there is a robot. It's not really they're hacking it, but you could take a Roomba and you can mount like an air cannon on top of it that shoots ping pong balls. Or actually, we're building an air cannon now that shoots out seed bombs, which are actually little balls of clay filled with seeds, so you can shoot out into vacant lots in hopes that they grow flowers in the empty lots. So you're kind of just turning things that, right?
Yeah.
And so you can take things that already exist and make them into something different, or you can make something completely new with parts that perhaps already exist. So that's kind of loosely what hacking is.
So basically what we have here, OmniCorpDetroit is involved in the Great Global Hackerspace Challenge. There are 30 participating organizations across the planet that basically put in a proposal to make an educational project using a microcontroller and a portable power source. So basically what we have right here is our prototype board, which we're actually working on. We had a little bit of a problem with it, which is why we made a prototype board. But basically we're doing our own laser tag kit. Generally these kits cost about $2,000 a piece, like professionally, and so far we're at about $25 to like produce them as like a workshop and like kind of like gather the components together. And the whole purpose of the project is to get people interested in using like microcontrollers and get interested and like get involved in programming and learning how to do it, and like kind of do it in a way that's like really useful but at the same time fun and like really accessible.
So this is also a Tesla coil, which for those of you who do not know, was developed by Nikola Tesla, and he was experimenting with wireless electricity transmission. So this magical thing shoots out, like 6 to 8 foot arcs of electricity, electrical bolts, like lightning. And it's pretty awesome. It's a pretty neat showpiece, and it's very loud and very disruptive, and people love it, especially kids. So it's really cool. And also what's particularly interesting is the gentleman that made it, he ran out of the electronics that he needed to build it, which in particular were a bank of these things called capacitors. So what he did was, since he couldn't get the right capacitors in time, he actually made his own capacitors out of wine bottles, salt water, and then a bath of motor oil. So this whole thing is like how the original capacitors were made, and it actually worked. So, I saw him hustling one night trying to get it done for a show, and everyone is he's filling a bunch of bottles of salt water and all this stuff and trying to concentrate salt water, and when it lit up and worked, everyone was kind of like, wow, that's pretty serious.
So it's with salt water, bottles filled with salt water.
Yeah.
And
bottles filled with salt water and sitting in a bath of motor oil. And I couldn't tell you why that is, but because it's not my project, but it works. This is actually a robot that a friend of mine is making. And what this is actually the cardboard prototypical frame for it. So this will actually be made out of metal, but you do it up in cardboard first, so you don't spend a lot of money on the metal and say, oh, I screwed this up. So actually a friend from Cranbrook Academy of Art, who's a member here, did this part. And this is not my project, actually. This is somebody else's project. But the idea is what they're going to do is they're going to make this robot. It's actually got a couple motors inside. You might be able to see them a little bit. Actually, those are the large, heavy-duty batteries. And then on the other side, there are some motors Oh, but they're all nailed down, so we can't see it. But the idea is this robot actually will have two things on it. It'll actually have a cannon on it, an air cannon that shoots ping pong balls. Actually, rapid fire. It's got like a tube of ping pong balls, and it'll shoot them.
So is this entered into a competition?
I think this one's actually just for fun. Yeah, it's actually top secret.
Does he want to shoot ping pong balls?
Yeah, I mean, it's a deadly ping pong ball. It shoots ping pong balls really fast. But they also
bad kids in the neighborhood.
Right, yeah, right. It just makes them feel silly when you get shot with a ping pong ball, running around with a real gun.
You might need that in the D.
I know, seriously. Seriously, this is actually personal defense robot. So, the MakerBot is a machine it's a thing that makes things, which I think is really exciting. And this was actually prototyped at a hackerspace in New York called NYC Resistor that I mentioned earlier. And it's kind of interesting, the story of this is actually based on an earlier 3D printer called the RepRap. But what this is you see this little guy here. He's a little gentleman. He's actually made out of plastic. And this plastic is spit out of this little machine head here. It starts looking like this. And it's squeezed through a hot head, which is kind of like a glue gun powered by a computer. So you see there's 1, 2, 3 motors. One is up and down, left and right, and so forth, and back and forth. So it's X, Y, and Z axes. So what it does is it pretty much just, here's like a bottom pad, but it pretty much will just go around and around and around to make the object that you've actually designed in 3 dimensions. Oh, this is actually a circuit board design, so don't look at that. But you can design something in a 3-dimensional program like SketchUp. Google SketchUp is free, so anyone can download it, or Blender, also free. And you can model it, and then you can create it, and it literally will spit it out. I think this maybe takes about half an hour to spit out. But the reason why I think this is such an interesting project is because this was made almost in hobby form by 3 folks. One guy who was kind of the rah project leader guy, who also does light programming, and then 2 other programmers. And they prototyped it, and we actually at NYC Resistor, we all put in our money together to buy a laser cutter, which is a $20,000 industrial machine that takes flat stuff and cuts it out extremely precisely. So once we bought that, all the projects kind of exploded because suddenly we could cut out parts really quickly. But we didn't have something that makes 3-dimensional parts. We just had things that cut out flat things. So with the machine that cut out flat things, they made all the parts for the machine that makes 3-dimensional things. And they sell this as a kit. And they started selling this as a kit in April of 2009. And they were actually doing the production, the parts for sale on the laser cutter at NYC Resistor at night. And they were selling them like hotcakes. So since April 2009, I think they've actually made over $2.5 million on this. So now they're like a 25 or 30 person company called MakerBot. Actually, this is called the Cupcake CNC, but I think a lot of us just call it MakerBot. And that's an example of a business launched out of a hackerspace. Even though the hackerspace isn't a business incubator, it's just people are like, we love this. This is awesome. Let's do it. And wow, maybe we can sell this. And wow, we can. So this thing actually costs around $1,000, and it's a kit. So when you get it, it's actually fun to put together, and then when you put it together, it makes things. In some ways, I think like hackerspaces historically started in the 80s, and I think particularly in Germany, it was collections of software programmers. So, and there were people that they found it to be a good thing to concentrate their money and their energy and their equipment in one place. So that way they could get more powerful computers, they could work together closely, and they could, I think, concentrate together on projects. So it might have been breaking into a bank, or it might have been, writing code for a serious piece of open source software. So open source is software that's shared by everybody. You can see the source code or whatever. And in that very same spirit, some of the people from the United States that started hackerspaces, which I believe the first 2 were in San Francisco called Noisebridge, and the other one was in New York called NYC Resistor. They went to a hackerspace conference called KS Communications Congress, and that was, I can't remember where it was, but it was in Germany. And they came back with this idea that, hey, we should start kind of this new version of hackerspaces where it's not just hardware, software people, but anybody who's interested in making things. So I was part of the hackerspace NYC Resistor, which inspired me to start a hackerspace in Detroit when I moved to Detroit.
I think this is a really great idea, because I remember reading a couple of years ago to where, as far as, now I know we know we're getting more technologically advanced, but when you compare how we advance, like the new things that we invent now compared to what it was like 100 years ago, or 200 years ago, we're not moving as fast as those group of people did.
Yeah.
So I think a space like this is absolutely fantastic